Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
I have other methods for keeping you in check. Methods I'd prefer not to share with you, however. They are the sort of thing that your knowledge thereof will limit the effectiveness.
Thank you, fellow crime fighters. Had you arrived a moment later, it could have spelled the end for me.
Yeah, so about him?
Are we gonna go get him now?
Well, not you and I, no. I'll mention in my report, scouting, and then evals will follow through.
I did.
Well, what the hell gives you that right?
Or a better idea yet. I think only good could come of it, a month or two in evaluations.
JT, he's punishing you.
No, he's not.
Yeah, 2 months in evals, that's a punishment. Don't make any long-lasting friendships down there. Don't get attached or learn any names and you'll be fine. Oh, hey, actually here, there is one name in evals you should learn. Maria Caraway.
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 1, Initiation, Chapter 8, Jaxon Teaque.
As usual, Charlie was right. Evaluations was a terrifying place. And I tried to heed her advice, being that she was usually right when it came to not making friends or talking to people, but it was harder than I expected. A lot of the evaluators really like to talk. I guess more yell, maybe just make noise. For example, there was one gentleman called El Lobo. Yes, I knew his name, even though Charlie warned me not to get attached, but it wasn't entirely my fault. The guy literally only shouted El Lobo over and over, then howled at the moon, usually in the daytime too. El Lobo certainly was not on his driver's license though, so I guess I was never formally introduced. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure he was even Hispanic. One time I asked him, "Cómo está?" and he looked at me like I was the deranged, hairy, lunar-barking bedlamite. Even considering that for all the money in the world, I couldn't construct a more suitable name for him. El Lobo was really archetypical of the general mood of evaluations, and that mood was bonkers. It said something that he led a team. That the very first day I spent in evaluations, I took my orders from a man whose sole reaction to any situation was to scream "the wolf" in Spanish with a thick Louisiana accent. It said even more that he was easily the most qualified of the lot. There was a lot of twitching and yelping, and just a general lack of concern for one's own well-being. Even considering the dangerous nature of evaluations, there were tons of near deaths. And the math was simple. 12 years since Beam was founded, 130 evaluator casualties. That was a little over 10 a year. So in my 2 months, statistically, I could expect at least one of these lunatics was actually going to kill themselves. But increasingly, I was discovering their outwardly high casualty rate was actually a pretty notably low statistic. That was the kind of bizarre part. In the 2 weeks worth of punishment I'd already served, I'd probably saved a dozen evaluators, so 130 a year seemed more like a reasonable pace. I guess there was no way of knowing if any of them would have somehow survived in my absence. Also, part of this was probably just the observer effect. I noticed the evaluators were more frequently flirting with death, but they only did so because I was there to save them every time. Maybe I was doing more harm than good, creating a framework that rewarded recklessness like that. I brought this theory up with Maria Caraway as she drove the two of us to that day's anomaly, about 100 miles outside the capital's borders. I don't know, maybe I'm just paranoid, but it seems like they've all gotten a lot more cavalier with themselves since the day I started. In some Darwinist sense, it might do the whole team better if I just let one of them die.
Oh man, please don't let it be me.
She sounded sincere, but we both knew if one evaluator had the skill, experience, and sanity to stay out of harm's way, it was her with a bullet. I had less fear for her safety than my own, honestly. No, of course, although I facetiously stroked my chin. It would be better if it was someone in authority, a more poignant message. Maybe I'll let a Lobo take the hit. She laughed infectiously, but it was also sort of distracted and insincere at the same time. I didn't think much of it because it was decidedly not Maria's style of humor. I don't know, one of the mean ones maybe? I continued quickly before it got too awkward. Maybe you could just pick one out for me, like your least favorite evaluator, and next time he does something suicidal, I'll just look the other way, and the rest will start trying not to die a bit more.
Wow, spoken like a true equalizer. I miss the good old days of point me in the direction to aim my gun, but who are we kidding? You'd never follow through.
I shrugged. True, too soft. Charlie would, though. She probably wouldn't have started saving them in the first place. This time she didn't even try to feign a laugh.
You don't know Charlie nearly as well as you think you do, Jaxon.
I knew that Charlie was right once again. Maria Carraway was good people. I couldn't even imagine her as an equalizer. She was always so cheerful and sweet. An entire troop of literal madmen pounding on their chests, banging their heads against the wall, and she kept them in line with manners and words and just general pleasantness. She laughed at everything, but not in a way that made you feel cheapened or ignored. She was a perfect listener. Seriously, I was surprised Charlie liked her, but I think that just went to show that Maria's eternal peppiness was enough to even overcome Charlie's cynical callousness. And look, Charlie was my best friend now. That wasn't changing. I always kept my 49th bus present tied around my neck, a reminder that it was only a matter of days before I was done with the asylum brigade and back with my partner, but still, we knew our relationship had boundaries. There were certain topics Charlie and I couldn't come to an agreement on, and I couldn't effectively talk about those topics with her unless I was looking to start a fight. This was not the case with Carraway. No subject was off limits. She had commiserated with me on all of my ethical issues, and honestly, it made me feel a ton better about it. Maybe that's all I really needed all along. While Howie tried to distract me and Charlie insisted I buried it, Maria really took it in and grappled with me on it. It's not like she had any solutions, a fact that caused her genuine dismay. But still, I think having someone actually admit it was a legitimate problem was sort of a load off my mind. I still couldn't quell the guilt, but at least I wasn't psychotic. Anyway, what do we got today?
You know, I send you the reports every night, Jaxon. You're supposed to read them?
Oh, right. Sorry, Maria. I guess a month of working side by side with Charlie and her opinions on homework started to rub off. But it sucks because I'm still training to be an equalizer while I'm actively being an evaluator. There aren't enough hours to read. Plus, it's hard to keep track of all the paperwork around here.
Buried debauchery with bureaucracy. That's Beam's maxim.
And sometimes I feel like I shouldn't unpack my suitcase, you know? Like, not to be lame, but this evaluation thing is just a pit stop. So getting into all the logistics is kind of pointless big picture. Besides, I kind of like to hear the report summaries in your voice.
I see. You slacker.
That was the other thing about Maria. While Charlie rebuffed my most timid flirtatious advances immediately and ferociously, literal cold showers, Carraway welcomed them. Maybe even sometimes shot them back. I was still a nerd, still fell in love with any girl who talked to me regardless of all circumstances, but Maria in particular was more than pretty enough to have me utterly smitten, almost immediately. No, but seriously, I sheepishly admitted. I didn't read it, sorry.
Well, incidentally, it's a weird one. Enzo Skeleton is the name. The guy got tagged by some equalizers like a month and a half ago on a bait case. He's nothing special, usually he's come down the pipe a lot quicker, but Prophet himself put a stop on it until a few days ago. It's weird because he doesn't normally stick his nose into stuff that he doesn't forecast directly, and... Jaxon, you look like you're gonna throw up. Are you okay?
I felt like I was going to throw up. It's the fly. Holy crap, it's the fly.
Just a sec. You know, there's so many anomalies these days, I get all the names mixed up.
She parked in front of the house and grabbed the case file itself from between the seats, shuffling through the pages as my heart thumped in my throat and I tried to catch a breath.
Yes, the busting equalizers refer to the anomaly in their preliminary summary as the fly. Aw, you did read it.
I shook my head, just trying to collect my thoughts. Carraway turned back to the report as a potentially more viable source for answers, with me in my thunderstruck state.
Oh my gosh.
She slammed the file shut, suddenly understanding the situation at hand.
It's that the fly. Jaxon, I am so sorry. You told me that whole story just a few days ago. Please. Jaxon, are you okay? You're getting freakishly pale, bro. What are your thoughts? Talk me through it.
I largely ignored her apologies. There were bigger things on my mind. This was his plan all along.
Who, Prophet? You'd think so?
Precognition, Maria. I keep forgetting how he can see the future. He knew I was going to come into his office and tell him off. He was ready for it. He was just egging me on to get a rise, and I fell for it like an idiot. Then he sent me to evals just to give me this case.
Jaxon, no. That's not how it works.
Yeah, well, this right here is the proof. Why would he put a freeze on this evaluation, this particular evaluation, unless he was saving it for me? He held on to it because he knew he was going to demote me, and now he sends it through. Now that he can force it on me, it's a test. He's trying to see if I've put my qualms behind me with this bus. He wants me to follow through and sign away the fly's life myself. Then he'll probably freeze it again so he can make me equalize him when I get back to Ava.
Dude, chill out.
She chuckled with a remarkably tone-deaf calm that struck me as odd from someone who is typically so compassionate.
You're being paranoid. That's not even how his abilities work. He doesn't get pictures that clearly. Step-by-step plan of action. First, hold the case, then he'll get demoted. No. Remember when he foresaw you? He didn't know where or when specifically we'd find you. All he got was your name and a brief description and a bunch of stuff about your power. Then we just waited for things to fall into place.
So how do you explain it? Is it all just a big old coincidence?
No, it's totally a forecast. It literally has Howie's name written all over it. I'm not saying he's not involved. You're just giving him too much credit. Probably, all that he foresaw was that he was supposed to freeze the case, and when. Then, maybe more recently, that he should unfreeze it. He didn't know why. He probably still doesn't. When his forecasts are working out, it feels like a coincidence. Look, I know right now you hate Howie, and trust me, I do too. But the stuff he foresees isn't stuff to suit his own agenda. There aren't motives behind them. It's fate. Just because a piece of paper has Howie's name on it doesn't mean he's hatching some devious plot. I like to take it as a sign from the universe that I'm on the right course. I think it's actually a good thing, you know?
Wait. You gave it to me on purpose. You saw Howie's name, recognized it was a forecast, and when you realized who the anomaly was, she was brimming with excitement, biting her bottom lip and bouncing up and down.
Ha! The look on your face. Oh my gosh, you're such a little conspiracy theorist. I had no idea. Honestly, Jaxon, we just talked about this case 3 days ago. You really think I'd forgotten already? Besides, your name is in the damn report. Busting equalizers. Charlie Shade, Jaxon Teaque. Seriously, good thing you so predictably don't do your homework, or this whole thing would have fallen flat.
But Maria, I don't understand. Why do you want me to evaluate the fly? She was physically shaking with anticipation.
Oh, hey, Jaxon, did you notice our comms haven't been working right recently?
Have you been hanging out with El Lobo? Why are you acting so weird?
Yeah, there's just so much static. It's really distracting, you know?
My comm is fine. She sighed, devoted to layering it on thicker just to penetrate my obtuse skull.
Why do we not use them today? I know we won't have an audio-visual record of whatever happens in there, but, you know, what's the point when they're just not working? I'll write it up as an irregularity, and we'll just have to go by whatever information you put into the written report. So be sure to be thorough, you know? I'll stay here and wait patiently. You go ahead and see if you can find this fly character. I don't know, though. I hear he's kind of elusive. It'd be a shame if you couldn't find him, or he just kind of, got away.
Maria.
Look, I know it's the wrong one. I know it's the clap that's making you feel super guilty, but maybe if the other guy gets a happier ending, it'll be retribution. A little. You could redirect the justice onto this one so it's net positive. Get the bad taste out of your mouth, like you kind of made up for it, maybe?
Definitely. I could have kissed her, but I restrained myself. Caraway, this is perfect. If I can save the fly, just symbolically have a half-happy ending to that first case, I think it's exactly what I need.
Awesome. I knew it would be. I've just felt so bad that I couldn't help you with it because I've been there and it sucks. You have no idea. I almost told you like 15 times today. I could barely contain myself. I just saw that file and Howie's signature and I knew something good was going to come from it. Just had to direct the destiny a little. Destiny director, I should print business cards.
She giggled and I hopped out of the van, adrenaline pumping at the opportunity Howie had inadvertently granted me. Who or whatever was behind Prophet's abilities had a wry sense of humor. how he sent me to evals as a punishment, and truly it sucked most of the time, but he did originally tell me it was to subdue some of my dilemmas. I guess I didn't mind accidentally getting both, especially if meeting someone as amazing as Maria came in tow. But there was still one thing that I was wondering. Maria, before I go, how do you know so much about how Prophet's abilities work? She smiled with her mouth, but in her eyes was a reminiscent sorrow.
I was his favorite for a while. Before the Dr. K bust, I was the golden girl. He told me all kinds of stuff.
Is that why you're in evals? Did something happen on that bust? She opened her mouth like she was going to answer me, but then thought better of it, closed her lips into that same crippled smile.
Go save the fly, Teaque. We'll work on my stuff later.
Whatever had happened on the Dr. K bust, Caraway was as reluctant to talk about it as Charlie was. I guess there was one topic that was still off limits. For some reason, in our brief first encounter, I didn't peg the fly as a suburbanite. You could have driven me up and down the block 14 times, playing Spot the Vigilante Hideout, and the only way I would have won is by pure random chance. There was nothing about this house that stood out from the others. Tiny, cookie cutter, ordinary. He might have even lived with his mom. My fledgling evaluator instincts were kicking in, and I started searching around the porch for some mail or something with a name on it, other than Enzo Skeleton, which frankly sounded fake. Then I realized it didn't really matter what his name was if I was just going to set him free. Just thinking about it, letting him have his peaceful ending, it gave me butterflies, but the good kind. I rang the doorbell. The guy who answered the door was undoubtedly the fly. His greasy mop head hair parted down the middle, hooked nose, neck beard, zero noticeable muscle mass. The tiny beady eyes were something I hadn't seen during our last encounter. He was wearing the big, bubbly, artificial compound ones because, well, selling the theme was important to this sort of guy, I guess. I opened my mouth to speak, but he started to shut the door in my face. My hopes that he wouldn't recognize me were dashed. That day probably impacted him as profoundly as it impacted me, maybe more. Instinctually, I reached out my hand to hold the door open, and as I'd grown somewhat accustomed to doing, backed up my push with a little Teaque interaction. It wasn't much, but enough to fling the doorknob out of his hand. Without anything pushing back, the door slammed into the wall with a thunderous bang, and the fly jumped, startled. He covered his ears, then fell on the ground, crawling away from me on his back.
Please,
He stammered.
please, don't.
I won't, I promise. I threw my hands up and stayed in the doorway. This was going distinctly the opposite of how I was expecting. I'm not here to hurt you. We just need to talk, okay? Can I come inside?
Yeah.
He closed his eyes and sucked his lips into his mouth, frustrated to the verge of tears, then nodded his head slowly. I stepped over the doorway, still holding my hands up as a sign of peaceful intentions. Then I reached out to him on the ground, helping him back to his feet. Are you all right? He twitched a few times, then deeply inhaled and exhaled.
Fine.
He wasn't just nervous or scared. He had a stutter, a real one, like a pathological speech disorder sort of stutter. Good Lord, this was doing wonders for my guilt. But I didn't recall him having one before. Back during the clap bust, he was so articulate then, all bravado and grandiosity. Why now was he stuttering?
Could you?
He held up a quivering hand and made shaky, unsure eye contact. Stay here, he nodded. Yeah, no problem. Take your time, whatever you need to do. I realize this is kind of sudden and random. I'm sorry to barge into your house like this, but it's pretty important. As I spoke, he made his way to the adjacent room, still shivering and twitching, pretty much ignoring my guilt-ridden insistences that he do whatever he wanted to in his own house that I had gained forceful entry to. Like I said, guilt-ridden. Poor guy. Of course he was this pathetic. Of course he could barely speak. First the clap tried to kill him, then Charlie and I showed up. That was easily the most terrifying day of his life. We probably gave him that stutter, not to mention put him in therapy for the rest of his life. Also, I could get my first taste of the field with something easy and—
Ah, my fellow do-gooder.
He returned to the living room, now wearing his compound eyes.
I must apologize. I wasn't expecting to see you ever again. Quite the start.
You do recognize me then?
Of course. You're the dandy old chap who saved my bacon from that ragamuffin in the stolen armored truck. I must say, you should probably start wearing a mask, chum. Your identity is so poorly protected when you fight without your face covered.
Was it the eyes? The dopey, big, yellow fake ones? It had to be. Without them, his stutter was too crippling to get 2 words out, but once he popped them on, once he was safely hidden behind them... Crap. How's he gonna convince him to destroy his technology, give up his alternate life when without it, he couldn't even finish a sentence?
Though I suppose to wear a mask would betray your cleverer disguise.
He stroked his chin over, dramatically furrowing his brow and glaring into the ground. Huh?
Well, as an agent of Beam, friend. Ha! You really threw me for a loop when I first saw you. I thought surely it would spell the end for me, but I suspected something was amiss when you didn't give me chase. And once I found the GPS tracker you placed on my foot, it was obvious. You stuck it to me from yards away, plus I'd seen you fly. Telekinetic, right?
I smiled in spite of myself and nodded.
So then I realized your partner, the girl you were with, your, sister?
Yeah, sure. There was no reasonable person on Earth who would perceive me next to Charlie and pick us as related on appearance alone, but no point telling him the truth, interrupting his role.
She teleported. You and your sister couldn't possibly be equalizers, you're anomalies, disguising as agents of Beam to divert suspicion and prevent capture. A most brilliant ruse, I must say. You arriving here with peaceful intentions confirmed it. Vigilante philanthropists disguised as equalizers, I have truly seen it all.
So that's why he was suddenly so trusting of me. He thought I was just like him. Okay, I could work with that. All I had to do was pretend to be a vigilante disguised as a Beam agent, and not the exact opposite of that. From there, I could convince him his life was in danger, and get him to give up the whole anomaly thing. I could do that, then he'd be safe. Right, you got us. Pretty sneaky, huh?
Tell me, do you and your sister have pseudonyms yet? Because I thought of a most perfect one for you. The Tele-Team. Get it? Telegirl teleports, you're telekinetic. It's perfect. Are you twins? Perhaps teletwins? A bit garish for my liking.
Again, in what universe could somebody think Charlie and I were twins? We don't really go for the secret identity thing much. I started layering on the Beam rhetoric. Maybe I can make him realize the danger without spelling it out for him, so he'd decide to give up on the game all on his own. No accountability, plus Beam really hates it when anomalies try to disguise themselves, and there's no reason to piss them off any more than we already do. And there's a real negative stigma attached to it now.
Ooh, the stigma. Now there's a pseudonym. Perhaps I could adopt it, if only I weren't already so committed to the insect theme. Tell me, you and Telegirl, when you spoke of me afterwards, what name did you give to me?
Well, we were calling you the Fly.
The Fly?
He frowned.
So trivial. Though I suppose I haven't managed to come up with something better.
Listen, Fly. Can I call you Fly?
Only if you allow me to call you Teleboy.
He laughed and heartily slapped my shoulder. Fine. Look, the reason I'm here, you're in danger. He smirked, excitedly and smugly.
Am I? Well, thank you for the warning, Teleboy. Do tell, which opponent from my rogues gallery has set his sights for vengeance on the Fly? Surely with the help of the Tele-Team, he will be briskly thwarted. Ha ha!
Everything was like a game to him. We were all just acting out comic books with no inclination of the actual peril. It almost made Beam more terrifying for me, knowing that people like this were out there completely unaware that they were being hunted down. It's Beam. We, interrupted some, intelligence from them earlier today. Radio chatter, you know?
Yes, very good. Diligent work.
Jesus, he believed that? I could probably say anything adequately action-ish, and he'd buy it. They know about you, where you live, everything. And they're going to come for you, Fly. They're going to take all of your tech, or worse, equalize you. You need to lay low, destroy all of this stuff. Maybe give up the bid altogether.
I see what's going on.
He scratched up his face in discouragement, as I sincerely hoped he was wrong.
You don't think I'm cut out for it. You saw my scrap against that clapping fellow and deduced that I was putting myself in danger. You're attempting to protect me from myself, is that it?
Yes, Fine. You got me, that's it. Whatever worked, whatever got him off the kick. He smiled proudly and nodded to me.
You are a good man, Teleboy. Truly a good man.
If he only knew.
Let me show you something then, Hero to hero, our little secret. Come with me.
He led me to a bookcase. Behind it was a glass elevator, and beneath his house, a secret lair. Good God. If Charlie were here, she would be crying with laughter. I myself let out a groan, but I don't think he heard me. Getting him off the kick was going to be tougher than I hoped. He'd already bid on it so hard. All in all, it was not a completely unimpressive secret lair. It sort of reminded me of Phil's lab, albeit darker and smaller. I wasn't convinced all of the machines, beeping and flashing and making important sounding noises, were actually doing anything more than establishing the aesthetic with special effects. But hey, I would have expected worse. In fact, I wished it was less impressive. Then I could more easily sell him on giving up the lifestyle. As it was, he clearly loved it so much. And obviously with all this, he felt so secure, so protected and guarded, like nothing could penetrate his defenses. I thought about how easy it would be for Beam to find this place, how the scouting department's access to city zoning documents would highlight it right away, how Phil's technology would sniff it out in minutes, how Charlie could stand on the sidewalk and six every square inch of the place without any effort at all. He had no idea how outmatched he was, no idea how much of a knife he was in a gunfight. I honestly had to save him from himself, more so than Beam.
Teleboy, I'd like to take this chance to show you that I'm not nearly as much of a liability as I once may have been. Our last encounter was early on in my foray into the world of crime fighting injustice. Surely to a natural-powered, seasoned veteran like you, I was not unlike a clown or a child who was playing with matches, so obviously you would have cause for concern, but I assure you, that is no longer the case.
Oh God, please let that still be the case. The fact that he was a joke was the only saving grace Fly had left to cling to.
My arms, for example.
He pushed a button on the keyboard in front of him, and a set of arms descended from the ceiling and latched around his trunk. They were nowhere near close to the clunky, clearly mechanical arms he had the first time I'd seen him. They looked fleshy and real. And he threw a few punches to demonstrate how authentic they were. It was impressive enough, but all in all, they were still just 2 extra arms. Nothing to bring down the house, nothing that Beam would kill him for. So far, we were okay. So far.
Pretty nice, huh? The wings are largely unchanged.
He pressed another button, and the set of wings came down and snapped onto his back. He hovered a foot off the ground, demonstratively.
But once I had attained flight, I stopped meddling with their function.
Fly, listen, this is all great. Aesthetically, sure, you've come a long way, but, do you really think 4 arms and a set of wings is gonna stop Beam? I don't think you get what they're capable of.
But Teleboy, I have only just begun to show off my repertoire. I don't think you understand what I am capable of. The eyes, you see.
He pointed to the yellow orbs encompassing his face.
The eyes are the greatest tool of them all, facts and records. Each panel is a sensor for a different source of data, be it heat, light, sound, motion. I've covered the gamut. And when I have finished a battle, I return to my lair, plug in my eyes, and voila! All the energy signatures and combat strategies, detailed chronicles of my opponent, having been recorded, are instantly stored in my database, and from them, I can make calculations to mimic their actions or technology, counter it, or even improve upon it. You recall the gentleman I was in combat with during our first battle?
The clap.
The clap?
I didn't think he'd ever drop the prideful bluster, but he did long enough to make a perplexed, disgusted face.
Seriously? In any case, I have adapted his sound manipulation technology. The amplification he achieved was impressive, but his misstep was assuming that high decibels were enough to do structural damage. This gun I have developed... Actually, allow me to demonstrate.
He scrambled over to a locker on the wall of his lair, and within it, the mother of all arsenals. Strange, cartoonish weapons, no doubt his own inventions. Who knew what they were capable of doing? The situation had officially jumped from not so bad to flat out bad. He handed me a set of earmuffs, the noise protection kind, like for shooting, and proceeded with his demonstration while I motionlessly reeled at how quickly the situation was unraveling before me.
This gun is based off of the clap's instrumentation, but unlike his, my weapon has an oscilloscope to measure the resonance frequency of my target. The monstrously amplified sound is then fired upon the object at that same frequency, and...
He instructed me to put on the noise-protecting headphones, then proceeded to demonstrate on an old chair, blasting it with a thunderous, high-pitched bellow from his gun. Even with the headphones on, it was deafening, and getting louder and louder. The chair vibrated a little, then a little more. Then it shattered to pieces. He cackled victoriously, but I was stunned silent. One haunting thought dominated my inner monologue. Howie was right. The zero-tolerance policy Beam had when it came to anomalies just based on intent, just in case the lowest of the low developed his abilities into something more potent. There was validity to it. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to, but Fly was living proof. He went from a bumbling idiot to a completely legitimate threat in a month and a half. If we had evaluated him sooner, he would have had all of his technology taken away from him before he had a chance to develop it. And this gun, this terrifying, powerful, dangerous gun that used sound to annihilate whatever he pointed at, and whatever the hell the rest of them did, none of it would have ever existed. Allowing Fly to persist had transformed him from a blundering fool to a hazard. Was he equalizable now? The Fly's real power was obviously his genius brain. His ability to create wouldn't go away, even if we destroyed all of his stuff and put him in jail. Sure, he'd start from scratch, but his persistence was evident. Even if I just wrecked the lab, it'd do no good. He'd rebuild. And if Beam approached Fly the way he was now, any random team of equalizers that didn't involve me, there was almost no doubt in my mind. He was too threatening. They would kill him. Fly, you need to destroy this. All of this.
Destroy it? Are you daft, Teleboy? Why in the world would I want to destroy?
Because I told you, Beam knows about you. If they come down here and find all this stuff...
They will never uncover my secret lair.
He dismissively waved me off. They will, Fly. They already have. Enzo? Enzo Skeleton. His eyes shot up at me. I knew that would get his attention. Yeah, Enzo Skeleton, right? They know your name. But it's more than just your secret identity, Fly. They know everything there is to know about you. And when they see your tech, they won't even bother trying to take it from you. They will kill you. Do you understand?
I understand, Teleboy. I have been overly flippant, and I apologize for that. The situation is too grave to dismiss. And if it's a fight they want, I will be ready.
What? No, there's no fighting, Fly. You can't fight them off. He put his hand on my shoulder and nodded confidently.
Yes, you are right. Not alone, I can't.
No, Jesus Christ. Fly, you aren't listening to me.
But with the teleteam at my side, we will send them on their way with their tails between their legs. These fiends are no match for our combined powers.
They are. They totally are. They'll kill all three of us, and they'll do it before lunch.
Oh, surely you overestimate them. I have seen you in combat. Surely you couldn't be suggesting their might outdoes our own.
I couldn't see any other way. I had to come clean. He was too stubborn, too insistent on his invincibility, a bulletproof vest and a bike helmet against the atomic bomb. There was no other way to save his life, and I had to save his life. I lied, okay? Me and Telegirl, we are equalizers. We weren't disguising. That's what we do. We work for Beam. I work for Beam.
Nonsense.
It's not, Fly. Look at me, okay? Can your eyes read my pulse or detect if I'm lying or something?
Well, yes,
Watch
but...
that heart rate when I say it. I'm not lying. I'm an agent of Beam. I'm an equalizer. I am telling you this to save your life. We are going to kill you if you don't destroy everything in this room. He stared at me for a while, then slowly sunk down into his computer chair, speechless and flabbergasted. Finally, he spoke.
This is my life's work. I can't just destroy it.
Then use it for something else. Just stop fighting crime with it. It's brilliant technology, really it is. You can fly, the arms, it's all amazing. Sell it to someone.
But I wish to help people, not to profit.
Then donate it. Donate it somewhere where you know it will do good. Donate it anonymously. Keep your code names and your secret identity. Be a hero still. Just get it out of your house. It's a death certificate if they find this. And there's nothing you can do to stop them. Or us, I guess.
Why?
He earnestly looked up, pleading with me.
Why are you in league with these fascist, genocidal devils? Teleboy, I just don't...
My name is Jaxon Teaque, not Teleboy. If I know your name, you should know mine. And it's complicated.
Elucidate for me. Please try. I want to understand. You came here to save my life. You warned me of Beam's forthcoming ambush. I am sure much to your own peril. You are a good man, Jaxon Teaque. So why are you on the wrong side? Why?
Question of the year. For the exact same reason you have to get rid of your stuff, Fly. Even me, even someone as powerful as me, they have me exactly where they want me. I can't defy them. I can't act of my own accord. Believe me, I wouldn't be involved in any of this if I had any choice. They'd kill me if I didn't participate. But you do have a choice. You can stop this now and live your life. Trust me, Enzo. It doesn't matter how strong you think you are. Trust me. They're stronger. They're better.
Together, Jaxon. Together we can beat them. I'm sure of it. We can free you from your chains together. What do they have against you? What sort of collateral is stronger than the human will for freedom, to do what is right? What could they possibly do if you tried to rebel against them?
And suddenly, I realized that I had never questioned it. Why did I never question it before? I was so scared, so nervous for my life, I was an idiot. And a coward for not trying sooner. Howie insisted he had this secret method for containing me the day we met, and at the time I trusted him because I had no reason not to trust him. He seemed sincere and apologetic. He made it very clear to me that the only options I had were to equalize or die. But what if that was just a very believable bluff from a very believable bluffer? It was entirely possible the fear of what Howie might do if I didn't fall in line was the very controlling force he was using to keep me in line. And to this point it worked. Wait, Charlie. Charlie was what was preventing me from straying from the flock. Charlie was the force to keep me from breaking free. I wasn't good at fighting, not even close, but I'd fought a whole team of equalizers the day they came to bust me, and I was much worse then. Now I could probably clear the whole department. They'd have nothing to take me down, were it not for Charlie. It wasn't worth it. I was paralyzed to call Howie's bluff. If I were wrong, if he wasn't bluffing in the first place, he'd just kill me, and I'd accomplish nothing. But if he was bluffing, if he didn't have some secret weapon to use against me, he'd just send Charlie to equalize me. And she absolutely, obviously could. Would she? Could I possibly put her through the anguish of having to choose herself or me? Because if she didn't, if she refused to kill me, her brain was still in a jar, the location of which was known by only Howie. He'd made sure I knew that. He told me the day we met. One push of a button and she'd be bodiless, trapped, tortured alone, and it'd be my fault. Maybe that was a secret weapon all along. He knew I couldn't leave Charlie in the lurch like that. Maybe he forecasted it, maybe it was just obvious, but Howie knew that by the time I got confidence enough to stop hiding and take a stand, I'd care about her more than my own will to be free. I wouldn't dare draw her into the line of fire for me. I was stuck. Both of us were stuck. No, I can't escape Beamfly, and you can't escape them either. If there were any other option, trust me, I already would have taken it. He sighed, slumping lower into his chair. Finally, he admitted.
If someone as powerful as you is so afraid of them, then surely they are an opponent I cannot overcome alone.
Then you know what you have to do? He angrily flung his gun across the lab, and as it clattered around destructively, he ran the palm of his hand down his entire face, stopping over his mouth, leaning against his desk.
Please leave.
Fly, I need to make absolutely sure that you understand.
I understand.
He shouted, suddenly very agitated, loudly enough to make me step back.
I understand, Jaxon, that I am to be a stammering, stuttering outcast for the rest of my days, and the only one who could help me is shackled by the enemy. I get it. The destiny I have inherited, but it brings me no comfort or joy. Now thank you for saving my life, as you no doubt have, but it is my dreams that are forfeit, and that is... Anyway, this is still my house. Thank you for the warning. I promise to heed it. Now leave.
And so I did. Some part of me thought about trashing the lab anyway, ripping all the guns out of that locker and slamming them together just to keep him honest, but I don't know, that wasn't my style. The Fly was safe now. He was just Enzo, and Enzo wouldn't be equalized. I'd made sure of it. He couldn't see it now, even with his amazing, all-seeing eyes, but one day he'd realize I'd secured the happiest ending possible for him. I had my redemption. It tasted a lot bitterer than I was hoping, but maybe it was just an acquired taste.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. I'm really having so much fun sharing this story I've been working on for 15 years, and that's why I'm doing it. That said, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave me a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you're hearing this, and also follow algorithms and all that. Also, if you like what you hear or want to get updates, you can follow me on Twitter at Beam Chronicles or TikTok, same handle. I've also been posting episodes to YouTube. If you want to like, follow, subscribe there. I still have no idea what to do with Instagram, but follow me there too, I guess. If you want to give me some encouragement or ask me a question directly, you can contact me through email, beamchronicles@gmail.com. All music and sound effects were sourced through the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Sergio Duarte for creating the cover art for this podcast. You can find him on Instagram. I've actually been sticking to a weekly schedule pretty well, but I might cut back to monthly pretty soon. Thanks again for listening.